I'm bringing back Sunday dinners because we could all use a little comfort, and I bet you can smell it right now as I say the words. We are recreating Grandma's Sunday dinner from start to finish. While everyone's Sunday dinner varies a little bit, when I ask the question, when you think of Sunday dinner, what is it? You think of pot roast was the #1 answer. Starting with a rump roast. You've seen me do pot roast in the form of a chuck roast. A rump roast is a little less common, but I think this is what a lot of grandmothers used back then. Sundays used to be slow, but now they're filled with baseball practice and whatever else you have going on. But I'm bringing it back. It's time to slow down. The thing about our grandmothers, when they cooked, it was very simple. So I'm gonna keep everything simple today. We're just gonna start with salt and pepper. So I think that's the way they did it. And when available, I'm gonna modernize Grandma's dinner best I know how, while still keeping to tradition. A rump roast has enough fat going throughout, so you don't need all this fat on top, so I'm gonna trim some of this off. Tried to dress as close to a grandma as they do in 2026 right now. So I'm doing the classic way to make a pot roast, which is start on the stove and finish it in the oven. I'm just gonna start with about a tablespoon of oil and get it really hot because we want to create that flavorful crust on the outside. And that's what you wanna hear. Now this process is gonna take a good 10 to 15 minutes. You want it to be browned on all sides. While that sears, chop up some onion and celery, just keeping it basic. Browned and flavored. I'm gonna set it aside while we cook our veggies in the drippings, onion and celery that I've chopped up. You just wanna cook it for a few minutes just to start softening these veggies. Also gonna add in a few cloves of garlic. I like to smash it and then just give it a rough chop. Smelling good. I'm also gonna add in a little more salt and pepper here. Now, I don't know if my grandmother did this, but adding a little tomato paste is going to help lift off the flavor that remains on the bottom of our pot, and I think it's a good idea. Not much, just about a tablespoon. The best part about a pot roast is the gravy, so I'm gonna try to start thickening up our cooking liquid a little bit so that it cooks in its own gravy. So I'm gonna go in with a little flour to the veggies, cook it for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then go in with our liquid. The liquid combined with that tomato paste is really gonna help lift that flavor off the bottom and keep our pot easy to clean. I'm gonna add potatoes and carrots a little bit later, but we're gonna go ahead and get it started in the oven now. Scraping up all that good flavor. Okay, now, one thing that I think our grandmothers did is use bouillon, beef bouillon. I'm going to update that just a little bit by using a bouillon paste. I think the flavor of this is a little bit better, and the flavor's a little deeper than what comes in a carton, so instead of broth. You can see how I've really cleaned the pot, so all that flavor now lives in the liquid. I'm gonna add back in the roast, and for a little more flavor, I'm going in with a tablespoon of Worcestershire and 2 bay leaves. All right, we're starting to simmer, and you can see that our gravy has started to form thanks to that flour. Got 1 hour and 45 minutes at 325. I feel like if your grandmother was telling you what was on the menu, it would be pot roast with carrots and potatoes, like that. Say it like that. I'm going to do the gold potatoes to go in the pot roast. I love these because they're nice and tender and buttery, especially when they're swimming in that delicious gravy. And then I've got 5 large carrots, and I feel like the iconic look is to cut them into, big chunks like this. I didn't add these at the beginning because they might turn mushy after 4 hours of cooking. So we add them at about the halfway point. So I'm gonna pull our roast out, see what it looks like. It's smelling good. I'm gonna give it a little flip. And you can tell, it's still really tough. So we've got a ways to go. Add in our carrots and potatoes. All right, lid goes back on. Back into the oven, 325 for another couple hours. You think Grandma did that? Beautiful, gorgeous. And it's all ready. The gravy is perfect. Not too thick, not too thin. Look how tender these veggies are. The meat is also gonna be so tender, but just like anything we roast, we're gonna let it rest, and it's gonna be the perfect amount of time to get the table set. We are about to have the best Sunday dinner. I would be willing to bet anything that if you have pot roast on your Sunday dinner menu, that there would be mashed potatoes next to it. Even if we're putting potatoes in the pot roast, because I also don't think you could have the pot roast without potatoes in it. My husband says that he would have rice with his pot roast, but there would also be potatoes in the pot roast. I'd love to know who still does Sunday dinner. We tried to bring it back. Sometimes we do. We were gonna do it once a month. It's gotten to be like twice a year, but hey, it's something. But our Sunday dinner, is pasta. Another thing I think of when I think of Sunday dinner, if we weren't eating at my grandmother's house, for example, we might be eating at the cafeteria. So some of this menu is inspired by the old cafeterias. The cafeteria restaurants, not the school cafeteria. And you want to start them in cold water so you can have your pot ready with cold water. To our potatoes, go ahead and salt your water. You can't really mess this up either. You want to cook these until they are like super falling apart. So in another saucepan, I like to heat up milk and butter. And we're going to add that in instead of adding cold milk in. Just a little trick they teach you in culinary school. Show you how tender these potatoes are. See, they just are super fork tender, not where they're just barely fork tender, but where they almost fall apart. All right, this is key to getting the best fluffy mashed potatoes. Drain them, and then we're gonna put them back in the hot pot. Set it over the burner while it's still hot. This way, any excess moisture can evaporate out. See how they're just kind of falling apart? I like to go ahead and give them a head start mashing while they're hot before I add anything to them, because we're not a fan of like super lumpy mashed potatoes in my house. So I like to mash them at this stage and then throughout the whole process. And we're gonna start adding our warm, buttery milk, a little bit at a time. You don't want them to get too watery. They're light, fluffy, simplicity at its finest. Give them a little taste. So delicate, they just float. Salt and pepper. When I make them at home, I usually at this point add in a big spoonful of sour cream, but I don't think Grandma did that. So when it comes time to serve them, while they're hot, I'll add in a little more butter for the top. When it comes to the green vegetable that would be on the table at Sunday dinner, sometimes I think that nothing else existed except green beans. Hands down, the number one answer when I said what was on your table for Sunday dinner. The only vegetable mentioned, green beans. They weren't fancy around my house. They could have even been from a can, but they were definitely short, not like the fancy sauteed haricot vert, okay? Got some bacon cooking